So today, there was no subjects proposed, so I get to choose. So now we are well and truly in the rains retreat period. And this is a time that worldwide, around the globe, the monastics are spending much more time in seclusion, much more time into meditation. For some of us, it takes a little while to settle still in, tie loose ends, and do a few things, and that has certainly been true for me. But I'm very much looking forward to spending a bit more time in seclusion in the coming weeks. And the best way to incline our mind into meditation, into seclusion, at least for me, is to find inspiration in these beautiful teachings of the Buddha. I really enjoy and my mind uplifts when I read some verses. So today I thought I might focus on the idea of feeling or Vedana, and maybe read out a few suttas and maybe talk a few things about this subject. Let's see how it goes. So I have a couple of suttas that was inspiring for me. And the first one that I'm going to read out today is from the Samyutta Nikaya, that is the Connected Teachings of the Buddha, chapter 1, that is the book with the verses to the Devas. It's called Devata Samyutta, Sutta number 2, which is called Emancipation. So this is how the sutta goes. At Savatthi, then when the night had advanced, a certain Devata of stunning beauty, illuminating the entire Jeta's grove, approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, stood to one side and said to him, "Do you know, dear sir, emancipation, release, seclusion for beings?" And the Buddha says, "I know, friend, emancipation, release, seclusion for beings." And the Devata says, "But in what way, dear sir, do you know emancipation, release, seclusion for beings?" And in answer, the Buddha says a really beautiful, a very deep sutta, a verse. By the utter destruction of delight in existence, by the extinction of perception and consciousness, by the cessation and appeasement of feelings, it is thus, friends, that I know for beings: emancipation, release, seclusion. Quite beautiful to contemplate, yeah? This destruction of delight in existence. Now take a minute or two to contemplate this idea. Do we all actually delight in existence? Do we want to be? Yeah, no matter how much difficulties we have in our life from time to time, I'm sure we all have, isn't it? Either sickness in the body, difficult people around us, financial problems, problems at work, problems in the world, isn't it? On a daily basis, we do come across quite a lot of difficulties. Yet, in the back of our mind, there is that feeling of trying to somehow find some pleasure, some peace, some ease, and to exist, right? We want to find something nice. We want to experience something nice. And what did the Buddha say? What we do, unless if you are fully enlightened, if we are not enlightened or if we are not into this practice yet. All we know is to go into the sensual world. Yeah, when we feel bored, we want to listen to something, or eat something, or talk to somebody, or look at something, isn't it? We constantly want to find something to make us feel a bit happy, at ease. So constantly looking for experiences, constantly looking and moving on and wanting to be. This is there if you close your eyes for a moment and see that flow, that pull of the mind. If we didn't have this, the mind will become very still very quickly right here, contented. But it's not like that, isn't it? There is a pull. There is a pull towards something. There is a wanting. But of course, there is that delight as well. Like, think about what would happen if your doctor says, tomorrow when you wake up, you will be blind. You will never see another thing at all. Are you ready for that? What if you lose your taste as of tonight? Never taste any food. How does that really feel? Or if you can't hear anything, not even the word of the Dhamma, how does that feel? So there itself we can see how, we are not yet ready to let go of these things. We still live attached to sights, live attached to wanting to hear sounds, to smell, to taste, to feel things, and also think about things as well. And in order to do that, we need to exist. We need to have the 6 sense bases. It's through those things that we experience and delight in the world. And as we delight in the world, delight in existence, then we are far away from emancipation, release, and seclusion. So the first line here says, by utter destruction of delight in existence is there emancipation for beings. And he also says, by extinction of perception and consciousness. Extinction of perception and consciousness. Again, something quite very deep to contemplate. This idea of being trapped in our perceptions. Now, do you crave for some kind of food that you have never seen, heard, or have eaten before? Some food from some other country or from some other culture? If you don't know it, if you can't perceive it, then you have no craving for it. But the moment you start building up perceptions by hearing, by reading reviews, these days that's very popular, isn't it? We read reviews about everything. What do? We take up views given by other people and we take them on board and use them to build up perceptions about various things. Oh, that sounds like a nice car, much better than the one I have. I want one. Or that sounds really yummy. That sounds really nice. All these cooking shows that people watch of all kinds of cuisine from all different places. And people end up traveling, spending lots of money, time and money to go over to places to eat. Isn't it? So once we start building up these perceptions and start perceiving things, yeah, we get trapped into these things and we can't see things in any other way. These are really powerful things to contemplate about perceptions. Yeah. Think about a little child who doesn't know very much. They have very few things that they want, right? Because they don't know much about things. But of course, the very few things they know, they still want, they still crave. Yeah. But as we grow up, as we learn about things, as we perceive more things, we really, really get trapped into ideas, views, perceptions, concepts, conventions. And they really sometimes get in the way of our happiness. I mean, as social beings, to continue to live while we are still here, of course, we need these things. Yeah, we need perceptions, we need views, we need concepts and conventions. Otherwise, we can't even drive a car. Yeah, road rules, all of those things are necessary. But can you also see at the cost of those things how we bring up negative emotions, get upset, get angry, have strong desires? So this is the trap, yeah, starting from perceptions, views, ideas, really bind us down. Even words and word concepts, linguistic usage of various things. The more we know about things, the more entangled we get into the world, into things. So it is nice sometimes to allow our perceptions to fade away. And this is what sometimes Ajahn Brahm calls in meditation. If you've been on retreats, longer retreats, sometimes you experience this, where the perception started to take wings and you start to perceive things in very strange ways. One time I remember Ajahn Brahm saying when he was a young monk in the monastery, after he sat for meditation, and then he was walking to go maybe to the toilet or somewhere. He was going past the ablution block. And at the clothes line, he saw a completely black towel. And he was thinking, who uses a black towel? He's never seen a black towel, a pure black towel. And it was really black. But later on, after, his perceptions have adjusted, he saw it's actually a yellow towel, like a monk's normal towel, which is brownish, yellowish towel. But he really perceived it as black. I'm sure if you've been on retreats, you've had really strange experiences like this, and you really perceive them. Yeah, sometimes things disappear. So kind of interesting. The Buddha said perception is like a mirage. Yeah, a mirage looks really real, isn't it? You see water, you see reflections at a distance. But in reality, there isn't anything there. It's all there because of causes and conditions. And when it comes to perceptions, it's really created and constructed by our mind. That is why the Buddha says an enlightened being is somebody who has mastery over perception. They understand perceptions for really what they are. So therefore, they can perceive anything however they want to perceive it. If it is even some vomit, they can perceive it as some ice cream, maybe like something yummy, something nice. Or they can perceive vomit as disgusting. Or they can perceive a beautiful rose as stinky, dead something. Or they can perceive it as something really beautiful. But what is really there is just some elements. But it is our mind that creates the beauty, the light, the want, or the disgust, the the not wanting, and all of those things. Kind of really interesting to also contemplate the perceptions and how we are so very trapped in perceptions. So that is why the Buddha says emancipation, release, enlightenment is that extinction of perception. That doesn't mean an enlightened being does not perceive. Certainly, they perceive very well, probably much better than us, because our perceptions are distorted, right? There is sanya vipallasa, chitta vipallasa, ditti vipallasa. So perceptions, views, and mind is distorted for an unenlightened being. But for somebody who's enlightened, there is no distortion. So they perceive very well, very clearly, but they're not trapped. They know things for what they are. So kind of really beautiful. Sometimes these things actually bring so much peace to our life. It is forgetting these things, we get carried away with these things and get into so much trouble, entanglements with emotions. But from time to time, if we are able to take a step back and remember about the perceptions, how they are made up and created. They have a usage, they have a practical use, but you don't have to go beyond its practical value. You need to allow the perceptions to get in the way of our happiness. Quite powerful to reflect. In fact, as you reflect like that, it is easy for your mind to become quite still. And the third line says, by the cessation and appeasement of feeling. So emancipation is that cessation and appeasement of feeling. Again, something quite very deep to contemplate. Now, I can't remember the sutta reference today, but I know it could be in the Nidana Samyutta that the Buddha says all of the Buddha's teachings are there for one that feels. The release or enlightenment is possible also for one that feels. Yeah. So in other words, trees, rocks, things like that, there is no feeling there, right? Even tree is alive, but it doesn't have the same way of feeling. They may have some kind of like feeling of light and things, but not in the same way of comprehending it and perceiving it as a human being would do. It's just a chemical process for a tree. Whereas when it comes to sentient beings, there is feelings and we get trapped precisely in those feelings. It is what one feels that one perceives. So this comes up in the Madhupindika Sutta. It's quite a beautiful sequence. In Pali, it goes like this. Chakkuncha paticca rupe uppajjati chakku viññāna. Tinnang sangati passo. Passa paccaya vedana. Yang vedeti tang sanjanati. Yang sanjanati tang vitaketi. Yang vitaketi tang papancheti. What does that mean? When the eye contacts form, when the two come together, the eye consciousness comes up. So eye consciousness is not constantly there. It's there when you give attention to a form. With that attention, when you contact, the contact happens when the eye consciousness arises. So contact is passa, yeah? So when you give attention with the eye, when the eye consciousness arises, contact happens. So you have an experience of sight. So an experience of sight, you have a feeling. So whatever you feel, that you perceive. Whatever you perceive, that you think about. And whatever you think about, then goes into proliferation. That excessive thinking with unwholesome roots, with greed, with hatred, and with delusion. And we get trapped in samsara. So starting from feeling, how the craving comes about and how we are trapped. Again, really important. So the Buddha says it's that cessation and appeasement of feeling that is enlightenment. So does that mean that an enlightened being does not feel? Certainly they feel. In other places, the Buddha says actually, an enlightened being can really taste to the highest level something that they eat, they can smell very well, very clearly. Their faculties are purified. It is our greed that gets in the way, the craving and wanting gets in the way of our full experience. For an enlightened being who has cut off that wanting, that craving, that tanha for the sensual objects, they have very purified faculties and they feel heightened feelings, yet they do not become attached because they have understood feeling for what it is. It's quite powerful again to contemplate each one of these lines. It is thus, friend, that I know for beings, emancipation, release, seclusion. So that was just one verse, and we are already half an hour there, but I also have a few others from the Vedana Samyutta. But before I go there, Venerable Upeka, would you like to add something to what was already said? Okay, later on, if it comes. Venerable Nirodha, you have anything to add?
I think it was very brilliant, and it touches upon the essence for our quest for liberation. Unless we understand all that on that level, we cannot really make progress. So I thank you very much for a very brilliant exposition.
Not yet finished.
Yeah, not yet finished, but...
Yeah. And Michael, you had something? Oh, no? Yeah. No? Okay. So now I want to actually read a little bit more. And this is from Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 36, called Vedana Samyutta. It's a entire chapter on feeling. So this is sutta number 3, called abandonment. Because there are these 3 feelings. What 3? Pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. The underlying tendency to lust should be abandoned in regard to pleasant feeling. The underlying tendency to aversion should be abandoned in regard to painful feeling. The underlying tendency to ignorance should be abandoned in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling. When bhikkhus, a bhikkhu has abandoned the underlying tendency to lust in regard to pleasant feeling, the underlying tendency to aversion in regard to painful feeling, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling, then he is called a bhikkhu without underlying tendencies. One who sees rightly, he has cut off craving, severed the fetters, and by completely breaking through conceit, he has made an end to suffering. So this is that part of explaining the ending of suffering or enlightenment as way of feeling. And there is a couple of beautiful verses which I'm also going to read, and then we can discuss this a little bit more. When one experiences pleasure, if one does not understand feeling, the tendency to lust is present, for one not seeing the escape from it. When one experiences pain, if one does not understand feeling, the tendency to aversion is present, for one not seeing the escape from it. The one of broad wisdom has taught, with reference to that peaceful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant. If one seeks delight even in this, one is still not released from suffering. But when a bhikkhu who is ardent does not neglect clear comprehension, then that wise man fully understands feeling in their entirety. Having fully understood feeling, he is taintless in this very life. Standing in the Dhamma with the body's breakup, the knowledge master cannot be reckoned. Really beautiful. I find these kinds of verses very, very uplifting and insightful as well, because we don't take time in our day to reflect these things. Very powerful.
Powerful, exactly.
Very,
Very,
very
powerful.
powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when we experience pleasure, we forget about, that underlying tendency to lust being present there. Yeah, the desire is there. And when we don't want things, when it's painful, there is that underlying aversion present in us. But the interesting part that we, as meditators, we get trapped is in that neither painful nor pleasant feeling, isn't it? There is that delight in wanting to stay there. Because for our day-to-day life, when we go from one end to the other, from being joy to suffering, we get thrown up and down and we get exhausted in those emotions of pain and pleasure. And finally, when the mind settles down and becomes a bit peaceful, and when the sort of, those feelings kind of subsides, I mean, of course, we don't get enlightened in every sitting, right? So, as yet unenlightened with all of these underlying tendencies, what happens is we subtly get trapped in that neutral feeling as well. It's good to remember this. And people spend years, decades meditating in this wrong way. Forgetting the meditation is to overcome all feelings.
It's almost delight in delusion.
Yeah, it is.
It's delight
That's
in
exactly.
delusion, yes.
This is what it says. Absolutely, the underlying tendency to delusion underlies that. So it's delusion. It's that sense of self wanting to enjoy that is coming again and seeking for pleasure, for peace, not the sensual kind of pleasures of, very gross ones. So we forget about it, but it is quite important.
And powerful.
Yeah, to remember not to get trapped. It is an important part. You do need to incline your mind towards that. Otherwise, you never get there. But not to just stop there, which is what many people do. Spend hours just being there without allowing the mind to go further. This is very subtle sometimes. This is where you let go of your meditation object and you just sort of allow the mind to drop. So what happens is the mindfulness actually comes down. That is the trap. If that doesn't come up, if the mind goes into joy, that's fine. But what happens to many meditators is as the body settles down, as the mind becomes peaceful, compared to that really gross sensations of pleasure and pain that we've been experiencing in our normal day-to-day life, we become very happy, very ease, and we start to let go of our meditation object, let go of our awareness and mindfulness. This is our problem because we start to relax. But we don't completely let go and fall asleep because you know that at that state, we know we are not sleeping. But it is a form of very bare kind of, you're barely aware. There is awareness of some peace. And you can stay like that for hours. It's nice and it's restful, but enlightenment, awakening, insights, not possible because mindfulness is very low. Because that's why in this next verse is very powerful. But when a bhikkhu who is ardent does not neglect clear comprehension, sati sampajanya. This is how sati sampajanya is the driving force, even through the meditation. That's the guide. Yeah. Then that wise man fully understands feeling in the entirety. You don't get trapped because even through the process of meditation, there are many places, if we are not careful, that we get and wise. That's why it's not just samma sati, it is mindfulness and clear comprehension. Sati and sampajanya that is mentioned here, that we don't get trapped. Also into the other much more pleasurable states also. We could get trapped if we didn't have clear comprehension. That is right view. Yeah, clear comprehension, the wisdom aspect of that comes from right view. So it is important to remember these things. Yeah, this is why cultivating right view is so important. Cultivating right view in our day-to-day life is so important. So that becomes, we become right view, and that aspect is so helpful to guide us throughout. So cultivating right view is through reading and contemplating sutras, remembering the teaching, because part of that word sati, smriti, is remembering the teachings, remembering what has been said and done long ago, not just worldly things, it's with reference to especially the teachings. Yeah, so this is important.
And also sometimes not to stop. This is good enough. We have a little bit better, and we say, oh, that's good enough. Not to stop there, because that's another sense of delusion, and it can happen very easily.
Yeah, and this is that rati and arati.
Yeah.
So what we have is called arati, and that is the mind not inclining to wholesome states, instead delight in something that is not really necessarily wholesome. Arati. So rati in this occasion, it has two nuances, is that power keep going to the next, because until we are fully enlightened, until we have eradicated all the defilements, made an end to it, it's not finished. So not settling into all those traps of various kinds of pleasures that's available is very important. So keeping up comprehension is very important. Yeah. So, there's such beautiful, beautiful sutras. They're also incredibly beautiful that I want to keep reading. But each one is so deep that we could spend a couple of days contemplating and discussing as well. But I didn't have much time to really prepare or contemplate because I was still waiting to see whether somebody proposed a topic. Since nobody did, I felt like choosing this, but or maybe this is like a warming up session of inclining our mind, and maybe we can have subsequent sessions where we can maybe delve deeper into this subject.
Yes, it's the most important topic. It comes down to the most important topic.
Yeah. So shall I read one more sutta? Maybe I will read.
Please.
This is also from the Vedana Sangyutta, Sutta number 5. So book 36, chapter 36, Sutta number 5 goes, should be seen. So bhikkhus, there are these three feelings. What three? Pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Pleasant feeling, bhikkhus, should be seen as painful. I repeat, pleasant feeling, bhikkhus, should be seen as painful. painful feeling should be seen as a dart. Neither painful nor pleasant feeling should be seen as impermanent. When the bhikkhu has seen pleasant feeling as painful, painful feeling as a dart, and neither painful nor pleasant feeling as impermanent, he is called a bhikkhu who sees rightly. He has cut off craving, severed the fetters, and by completely breaking through conceit, he has made an end to suffering. Now, this is again very, very powerful, because what is the Buddha saying here? First noble truth, right? Noble truth of suffering.
Mm.
This is where, yeah, because he says there is no such thing at the end of the day as a pleasant feeling. Yeah, all feelings are unsatisfactory. That is why, even though traditionally, even here, the Buddha says in the previous sutta also, Buddha defines that there are three kinds of feelings. For somebody who is as yet unenlightened, those three feelings are felt. There's only three kinds: pleasant, painful, and neutral. However, it is because we perceive that pleasant feeling, but it is, in the big scheme of things, in that scale, lesser form of suffering is experienced as pleasant, but it's still a form of suffering. That is why the Buddha says here, pleasant feeling is to be seen as painful, and the truly painful feelings to be seen as a dart. And the impermanent one, that is, we get trapped, to be seen as impermanent, because the feelings only last as long as the contact is there. When the contact breaks up, the feeling ends there, whatever feeling that is. So kind of interesting. But anyway, this is just stimulating all of you to think, reflect, and maybe ask questions either today or in subsequent sessions, because these are kind of challenging as well, isn't it? But the Buddha is saying, I'm glad I'm not saying it. The Buddha is saying so. I'm safe. So here's the beautiful verse.
Yeah.
One who has seen the pleasant as painful and the painful as a dart, seen as impermanent, the peaceful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. He is a bhikkhu who sees rightly, one who fully understands feeling. Having fully understood feelings, he is taintless in this very life. Standing in the Dhamma with the body's breakup, the knowledge master cannot be reckoned. That one, what would you like to add, Andrea?
Yeah, no, it's very, very profound. We can't read it often enough here. Thank you.
Okay, now I think I will open up for questions. Let's see what happens. Michael, you have a question? Yes.
Yeah, so there's the reason why the Buddha says that neutral feelings are impermanent. I mean, obviously,
all feelings are impermanent.
Sure,
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
but is the point of saying that,
yeah,
like, to suggest that, it's sort of like that neutral feeling very hard to see. Often. You tend to identify with it,
right?
Or it seems like it's a constant in your life. Believe that can end.
Yeah, actually very good. I don't know whether people online heard Michael. He was telling that there's a reason. I mean, we know all feelings are impermanent, right? But here the Buddha doesn't say in that particular sutta. In other places he says, but in this one, he doesn't say pleasant and painful, but points out neither the neutral feeling as impermanent. And he was saying that the neutral feeling, we sort of identifies with it because that's big part of our life. Yeah, there's a large part that goes unnoticed and we don't notice its impermanence. Instead, we sort of hang on to it as our identity sometimes. We sort of welcome the pleasant, reject the painful, And what is here, we get trapped in there. This is me, this is mine, and this is what I want. That ease and peace and enjoyable state. But that too is impermanent, so it's important to see. Yeah. Good point. It's actually an important point. Is there some questions on the chat? What should, okay, Ranjali says, what should be a painful feeling felt as a dart? Sorry, couldn't get the words meaning. Okay, dart is like something that pokes you. Arrow,
an arrow.
like something that really pierces through you. So these are the real painful feelings, like, being sick, having an accident, bleeding, having a cut, or even the emotional feelings of being tortured, traumatized, or any one of those things. So those are the painful physical or mental feelings that are really, very felt strongly to see as a dart as in being hit by an arrow or something that pierces through you, as very painful. So the Buddha is saying even the pleasurable things, actually you think about and you feel, this is very true. I don't know whether I can say something that is gross a little bit, but this is actually true. This is proven scientifically as well. What is considered as really high pleasure in the sensual world? Yeah, having sex, orgasm. But when they do a brain scan, the part of the brain that lights up is pain receptors. Pain is actually a painful feeling. It really is a painful feeling. It's our perceptions that's well trained just to keep our species going. This is necessary by evolution, that it is felt as pleasure, but it is actually a painful feeling. That's why the Buddha is saying pleasant feeling is actually painful as well. Yeah. It is. That's why I just took up that, because that is sort of put up on a pedestal, sort of, and saying that that's like kind of feeling that most people would look for as real pleasure. I mean, yeah, chocolate cake, okay, nice music, okay, but this is what is usually the big craving, big trap as well. But that is actually a painful feeling. Reflect on that, or after meditation, you can experience that. You can, as a meditator, have fun and games with your own mind. I don't know what your partner might say, but if you find it challenging, find out for yourself. But this is what the Buddha is saying, but scientifically proven as well, that pleasant feeling is actually painful. So interesting things to contemplate. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else would like to ask questions? You can unmute and ask. You can comment. You can share your experiences. Or have I shut everybody up in deep contemplation?
I was also contemplating, the thought came up that how we are brainwashed by the general idea what is pleasant and how it should be. And we are just following it blindly because we don't want to be different. We don't want to rock the boat. But actually, we're just stupid.
I mean, a very simple example related to food. In all cultures, we have very gross, smelly things that we delight in. Like for Asians, we have the dried fish, right? It's technically kind of rotten, dried fish, very, very salty, really. And smells, exactly. It smells disgusting to somebody else. But since little, we've been brainwashed to delight in that smell. And for us, it's just, wow, I'm hungry. Tastes really nice. I like it.
And we Westerners, we have the camembert who smells like toilet.
Or the olives. I remember the first time I put an olive, one of my friends was telling how yummy olives were. And I've heard a huge amount about this yummy thing called olive, which I haven't eaten before. The moment I put in my mouth, I spat it out. It was bitter and salty. What was nice about it? But 20 years later, I love it. See, this is how it is. Yeah, that is why. What we call pleasant.
Some cultures think that chili peppers are
Yeah.
really tasty because they make you healthy.
Ah,
And other cultures are like, it burns, you know, but
Yeah.
the burning is associated
Of
with being
course.
healthy, then you think it's good.
for some people, they don't feel like they have eaten anything if the tongue is not burning.
And the frightening thing is that we are so easily brainwashed because the majority thinks like that, so it must be like that.
Yeah, so
we are,
gullible.
exactly, yeah.
So gullible.
your own perhaps healthy perception of it is bypassed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, thank you for saying it about pleasure actually being painful. Okay, I didn't say it, the Buddha said it.
But it's impermanent, so it is, if it's impermanent,
Would you
it is
like
for
to share
us
when the
painful.
one
Yes,
takes
yes.
Share some wisdom.
Well, it's actually, I mean, we can say these things out, but you have to actually see it.
Yeah,
It's only when you
absolutely.
see it
You have to
that
say it.
you can drop it. That
Yes.
word understand, clear comprehension,
Yeah.
mindful. You
Yeah.
can intellectualize this, but
Yeah.
unless you actually very clearly see the
Yeah.
unpleasant, sorry, the
Yeah.
pain in it, you are just
Deluded, yeah.
you're just
But that's
telling yourself.
exactly that. This is the practical application of these things, right? Starting from our, very gross feelings. That's why I invited. It's important to check these out. If, as practitioners, if we separate our meditation and our normal day-to-day life, then we'll never get enlightened. And we have to start.
I
Yes.
read a study
Yeah.
that meditators feel pain for shorter periods of time.
Oh,
Intuitive, right? Like it's
Yeah.
precisely, the second dance.
yeah. Second that is
But
not there.
It could either be the Buddhist teachings, or it could be the effective meditation.
The thing is, pain is felt when you give attention to there, right? But when you take away the mind from there into your meditation object, then it goes. And when this sort of subsides, it doesn't grab your attention again because your view is there. And then you leave it aside and you put back with right view back into meditation objects. So it's not then grabbing you so much. But the thing is, we have to start from where we are at. So contemplation, that's why all these things, even as we eat, to really understand. And you have to do it so many times because we are so trapped in believing these things. Easily said than done. But even that little bit, slowly, actually goes in. And you realize at the end, things are this much. Certainly, this has happened to certain things that we have given up, right? We have certainly, as practitioners, given up many things, many pleasurable feelings. And we haven't given them up with difficulty. Yeah, we have given them up with ease precisely because we have seen them as useless or painful or unhelpful. That is why. So it's very easy. It's not so hard to give up things when you see its danger, its pain, or it's going the other way around. Yeah, so that comes from seeing precisely even how we became renunciants, how we became monastics is by when we saw those things, right? So that contemplation starting from the lay life, day-to-day life is so important, not to just blindly go through your day. And this is also great because then you don't feel like you're not practicing. You're practicing all the wakeful moments every time because we are experiencing constantly sights, sounds, tastes. That's our life, right? From every wakeful moment, we have experiences. So to check in with those and making an understanding is actually really helpful to not get trapped. It's because we forget that and we don't do that we are still trapped with our food or with our music or with our whatever we are still trapped in. It's because of that.
Yeah.
But if we saw it, we given it up.
Yeah, and also that the Bhava Tanha, it is one of the last, the craving for existence is the last one to go finally at arahantship. So that how strong it is, Bhava Tanha, Even if you are almost dead or something. I had an old friend, very old already in his 80s. I want to live a little longer, That is also the animals, that our craving for existence is so strong. Yeah. And how brilliant it is from the Lord Buddha to actually undercut it all. Not to push it away, but actually see the reason and how to overcome it.
Okay, there is also, what happened? There is, thank you, Venerable Kanika, and lovely to see you, Venerable. Venerable, I would love to hear more about how each of you practice these concepts in your lives. Okay, I think you just answered the question about, okay, we were discussing that. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
It's good to see you, Venerable Upeka, Michael says.
Oh, hello, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not anything very complicated. I don't, anyway, in my occasion, I don't like to complicate things. It's just that very simple thing of paying attention to as you eat, as you listen. And this is how we have actually let go of things when we see. And it's not so hard to see. Yeah, but you have to see again and again and again and again until the mind really understands it and gives it up. I mean, the more peaceful you become, the less defilements you have, the seeing and understanding and giving up is stronger. So that is why meditation is important. So when the mind is tired, when the mind has lots of defilements, it's very hard. You want those things, so you go for them. But when the mind is peaceful, when the mind is still, those very things, you actually see the grossness and the stupidity of these things. It's kind of really interesting as practitioners and meditators to see this in our lives. Oh my goodness, how stupid am I running after this thing when I'm tired, when I'm in pain, when I'm low in mindfulness. And when the mind is at peace, when the defilements have subsided a little bit, I'm not talking about jhana, just even in, when you have rested, when you have a little bit more mental energy, then you can really restrain. I mean, this is where restraint becomes easy or hard. Yeah. Restraint becomes very difficult when the mental energy is low, when you're tired, then restraint is very hard. But when the mental energy is when you're rested and energized in the body and the mind, restraint is not that hard. It's actually easy. So that's why every Dhamma talk, I also always emphasize the importance of rest. As practitioners, if we really want to make progress, take that even one step ahead, what we need is rest. But the right amount. Overly resting, overly sleeping, laziness and slothfulness goes the other way around as well. So you have to know the right amount of rest. And rest doesn't mean sleeping. Rest means meditating as well. So first you can sleep, rest, eat well, have some time to do nothing, but then to wake up, that process of allowing your mind to wake up, that is important. Because often resting goes the other way around, where you just go into unconsciousness and fall asleep, and that actually creates lots of problem, because there's a beautiful sutta where one of the monks was so ill, so tired, was thinking, I'm dying, I have so much pain and all of those things. And then he went to the Buddha. And then the Buddha said, actually, you have been sleeping too much. You've been sleeping, eating too much and sleeping too much, and actually makes you feel very sick, very, very sick. So it's knowing that right amount to eat and right amount to sleep. So not too much, not too little. And it varies. You can't say this is the right amount for me for the rest of my life. It's not like that. Sometimes because of actual sickness, if the body is fighting a germ, you need to sleep more. Or if your digestion is not going so well, you need to sleep a bit more. At other times, you don't need that much of sleep. The body is well, mind is ready. Then you need to really do meditation. So this is the way. So when that right amount, we find that when that physical and mental energy takes off, it's incredible. Then restraint is really easy.
And also the intention to find the tools, because sometimes we start off that way and then we kind of cruise along and we lose our initial sincerity and urgency. So sometimes to reflect on that and come back to it, yes.
Okay, anyway, we've gone to 8:30 almost. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Sadhu,
And, yeah,
sadhu.
Take care.
Sadhu. Thank you for a beautiful talk and session, actually very important.